The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists. Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor.
Greetings, fine people.
Dr. Orange Pill from Harlem Bitcoin.
Hi, everybody.
Josh Igala from the Standard.io.
Yibbity yibbida.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to Issue 1. Issue 1. U.S. regulatory crackdown sees institutional investors prefer gold to Bitcoin, says JPMorgan, longtime friend of Bitcoin. Meanwhile, Bitcoin has rallied 76% this year, and it appears to have been driven by retail buying and perhaps ordinals. Dan Eve, what do you think about JPMorgan's timely advice to buy gold, not Bitcoin?
Well, they do seem to kind of to and fro, don't they? It's interesting they're saying that it's mainly retail investors now, sort of, aping in rather than the institutions. Maybe that's because the institutions have kind of already bought at the 16K level. If their calculations are right, that 15 months before the halvenings, when usually the cheapest price for Bitcoin is. So I know quite a lot of people that started aping in heavy around that sort of time. So that could be one thing. Gold, obviously, it's pretty solid, as we know from Voltoro, and people who are still a bit dubious about Bitcoin, but really want to take their money out of the traditional banking system and other assets related to banking, even kind of tech stocks and stuff, can put it into gold, which isn't it like kind of pretty much at all-time high right now? It's like the gold price is insane. So we can say that it's pretty steady, and until we start mining asteroids, right, we're going to have the gold is kind of finite on Earth. So maybe with Starship failing, it made the idea of mining gold even more hardcore, and that's what's made people turn to gold or something crazy like that. But ultimately, Bitcoin is there's only 21 million, as we know, and there's not even if there's 8 billion people on Earth now, something crazy like that, right? You got not even half of one each, right? So between everyone on Earth. So I think I know where my money is stacked. But obviously gold is a good alternative. Plus you can you can hide it away like you can with Bitcoin, in case you're worried about the big government stealing your assets.
The one thing that worried me about this article was the whole retail thing being into Bitcoin, because we know retail always gets squeezed. I want to be with the smart money, right? I want to be with the banks and the quants and the whatever else they are. But they have been wrong on Bitcoin before, so they could be wrong again. Dr. Orange Pill, what do you think about JPMorgan's advice to buy gold, not Bitcoin? Gotta unmute yourself.
There we go. Yeah, I guess I would put JPM advice in the same level in this case as SBF advice. They're highly incentivized to not want you to get into Bitcoin. Gold is finite, like you said, but paper gold is not. And we know that JPMorgan's gotten in trouble for manipulating the market, and it's very lucrative. Why wouldn't they want people in there? It's part of the way they make money. In America, at least. You can, it's in this kind of case, you can commit as much financial crime as you want, and you're guaranteed to never go to jail, no matter what. It doesn't matter if you break the entire economy, not one person's going to get in trouble. And then if you do get caught, you get fined about 10% of what you stole. So it's a pretty good deal. So I would say that JPMorgan definitely would prefer people to stay in gold for that reason. They also have the coin, the JPM coin, and they're working with the Fed. It looks like, they're buying banks and consolidating. And you can't really manipulate Bitcoin in the same way. So they don't have an incentive to get in there. As far as like the smart money versus, I actually think it's a cool thing that it's mostly, if it is mostly retail driven, I think it's great, because to me, the longer it takes for institutions to get in, really the better it is actually for everybody else. Just from the sense of course, it'll make price go up. That's a benefit. But at the other time, distribution among more people to me is like a better thing. better deal. And if more people can come in, more like sort of noobs or regular people like us can start buying now, they're going to be able to stack more sats. I think the institutions will come in, but not till it's like probably at the same market cap as gold. That's when they might start taking it seriously. So I think we still got a while before actually we legitimately, at least in America, especially with the regulatory thing, but just from the structure that how being able to even do it, even if they wanted to, I don't think they could right now in big institutions. So it's going to be a while before the institutions come in. That's my take on it.
You know, the great thing about paper gold, you can print as much as you want and it hardly takes up space and it's not very heavy. You can fit a lot of it on a single piece of paper. It's a really cool thing.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Just think how much you can get. Think how much gold you could have.
Now, I know Josh Shigala is going to disagree here on the paper gold. Josh Shigala, what do you think? JPMorgan advertising for Voltoro now.
No, look, I mean, gold, look, folks, just get your money out of fiat. Gold and Bitcoin, they're working together. I've said it forever. They're both rare assets. They're both assets that can't be minted out of nowhere with interest that doesn't exist in the system at some sort of fractional reserve. We've got to stop battling each other. This is divide and conquer crap. Even forestry, even pork bellies, property, anything to get your money out of those banks right now is probably a good bet. Not financial advice, do your own research. But you know, the good thing about gold, people don't realize, I mean, gold, we're sitting at a 13 point, I don't know, like it's like a $13.3 trillion market cap for gold. You know, it's liquidity. It's the second most liquid market under the FX market. It's you know, if you're an old school person that doesn't really understand tech, you're gonna just want to buy some gold because that's what you get it. It's a block of metal sitting in a high security vault or in your, and I wouldn't actually recommend storing it at home because you're probably going to get robbed if you tell someone. And it's harder to sell. There's more of a spread when you bring back your gold. So having it in a high security vaulting facility works. It's fully insured then as well, which is really important. If you get a proper top tier vaulting facility. But yeah, remember, these clowns are just trying to distract you by saying, "Oh, gold, oh, Bitcoin," yeah, and trying to build that picture. The real enemy here is fractional reserve banking and CBDCs that are coming out. Everything else is just, you know, if you're more comfortable with a metal that won't go mooning anytime soon, all it'll do is protect you from inflation. Then if you're happy with that and you don't have much earning capacity left to lose, you know, I don't know, 50% of the value of your portfolio because Bitcoin shits its pan because of the SEC pulling some regulatory nonsense while buying up in the background. If you can't handle that sort of pressure, then get yourself some gold. You'll be better off in the long term. So that's my take on it. And you can take that to the bank.
It is funny, Josh. I thought about gold there as an altcoin and something we should unite against. And we have such an adversary culture in Bitcoin. Everyone's always looking for the next enemy. Who is the next person to claim that they're Bitcoin and not be it? And I agree, Josh. We should try to do something positive and focus on the just, you know, gold and Bitcoin can coexist. Gold doesn't have to kill Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't have to kill gold. Let's move on to the exit question. Predict the price of Bitcoin against the magical Bitcoin predictor ball. Dan, Eve, will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower this time next week?
I was very rarely right when I said higher by 0.47% apparently. So I'm going to go higher again.
Dr. Orange Pill, higher or lower?
I have to be a permabull. So I'm going to say up.
Always up, always up. That's what I've always said until it went horribly, horribly down. Used for like years. I was like, how can Bitcoin go down? It's the greatest thing ever. How can it go down? And you're like in this loop. Josh Shigala, higher or lower?
Well, when I draw an equilateral triangle this way and then a line going that way with the isosceles triangle going downwards, I see a whole lot of waves and ups and downs. I do see it going up within the next week.
And now, does the ball agree? Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? Here we go. It is decidedly so.
Yes.
Yay!
Ball reluctantly agrees. Moving on to issue 2. Fedi raises $17 million in a bid to accelerate the adoption of Bitcoin and Lightning. Fedi Mint will allow you to create federations where users can set up communities to custody Bitcoin and Lightning together, reminding everyone of the old loaning societies where people would loan money for the good of the community lending, other things like this. Well, now they have $17 million to make it happen. Dr. Orange Pill, what do you think about Fedi Mint and their sudden raise of 17 mil?
Well, first of all, I love Bitcoin Lightning. I think that's email for money. That's the thing. That's the magic. It's here, but it's still like kind of rudimentary. So anything that I see is going to help Lightning like get more mainstream, I love. The federated idea is quite interesting. It's hard, it's hard for me to think it through. It's like, okay, I could get my first. I said it's funny. You start with your family, then you get a couple of close friends, and you pull your money, your Bitcoin together, and you kind of put it in a thing, and you're saying we're all gonna, I get as long as one of your cousins is not last name isn't Madoff, I think you're gonna be fine. But this guy, I would just say I'm sure there's gonna be all kinds of ways to multi-sig it in some way where some majority would have to be able to get in there to be able to really mess with it. But conceptually, it sounds really, really great. I mean, right now, setting up a Lightning channel can be a little bit difficult knowing the tech. And even there's only one wallet that I know of, Wallet Satoshi, where you can just tell a stranger to download a wallet and you can at least send them, at least in New York, right? Where you can send them Bitcoin right away. So I think it's wonderful. I love it.
It does sound like a great idea if you could pool funds together for the good of the community. Eventually, if the funds actually go up in value, you could take off small pieces of that, help people pay for tuition, help people get a new apartment, things like that people can't usually afford on their own. Would be a good example of what a proper Fedi Mint could hopefully do in the future. Josh Shigala, what do you think about Fedi Mint? They've got 17 million.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I mean, one of the problems I've always had with the call for governments to accept Bitcoin is that I think it's a really terrible idea, because what can happen is that the governments can basically, first of all, they're totally usually inept, so they'll probably lose the private keys. But secondly, what they can do is they can hold a government at ransom by basically confiscating the private keys of the country's wealth and running off with it as a brain wallet, even it's just very, very hard. So then when you try to federate it out and have more multi-sigs, the more complex it gets, the more people are likely to screw it up and not be able to come together again and actually release the country's wealth. Whereas gold for a country makes a lot of sense because it's just bars of gold. Like, you can be as dumb as a box of hammers and still understand that gold is in a vaulting facility. So that is one issue. But this looks like it could be something. I've always said it would work really well if all the people, who was a massive multi-sig and 51% of the people had to vote to do something. There's something there, but the multi-sigs and Schnorr signatures sort of made it a little bit more possible to have vast amounts of multi-sigs. But I think if I'm understanding what they're doing correctly, it would be interesting to have a larger community of multi-sigs to control the wealth of a community or a city or a country.
Although I do think you have to watch out, as Dr. Orange Pill was saying, if the multi-sig votes turn against you, you could lose horribly, and your entire college fund could end up in one of your neighbor's houses, not in all of your neighbor's houses, right?
The other thing with multi-sig that's always like sort of, what if somebody just doesn't care? Like, what if they just stop caring, right? like what happens when you need that 51st% and you can only get 49 and everyone else like just quit? I don't know if that would happen in Bitcoin, but it's just like there's just another problem that's always sort of on my mind when I think about that stuff.
Your funds are lost forever. Lost forever.
Well, it's a kind of a value add to everyone that didn't keep it in that, because now Bitcoin has gone up a little bit because there's more lost forever. So
Another one of those dark triangle theories from the Bitcoiners. They're like, yeah, if you screw it up and you lose them, more money for the rest of us. Ha 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 ha. Dan, Eve, I had a bad experience with Bitcoin loans at BTC Jam, but what do you think about Fediment and their new plans?
Well, I think it's great. It's more money for pushing Lightning adoption, and I think what's interesting about this that we talk about quite often is Bitcoin needing more privacy, and these federations provide more privacy for their users, both in Lightning and the actual main like mini federations, which is cool. But yeah, one thing that worries me is like, what if the family gets into an argument, right? And there's I can imagine Jerry, like they're on, or well, maybe not Jerry Springer, of course, but someone else, all arguing over whether they're going to end up signing to let little Timmy have his college fund or something crazy like that. So I think that's the part that would worry me. But that's the same as any multi-sig, right? You've got to trust the parties that go in. So it adds a slight area of trust to the trustlessness, but ultimately being able to push Lightning with a lot more budget as well, I think is definitely a good thing, and it seems to be making waves throughout the general community, right? This is a really positive thing for Bitcoin. Obi, and he's a great leader, and it seems like he's doing some really good stuff with Fedi Mint. So I think ultimately it's good for both Bitcoin and Lightning.
I worry though, Dan, about talk shows of the future getting too complicated. Will I really be able to understand Jerry Springer or Maury Povich if I have to know what multi-sig is and what encryption is, all this kind of stuff? It's a barrier to entry. I want my talk shows low, right? All right, let's move on to the exit question. I'm going to spring this on you really quickly. What's an example that you can think of a good federation? What could people use this theoretical idea of the Fediment for? Dr. Orange Pill, putting you right on the spot.
Oh, thank you. Actually, well, so I'm part of what we call Harlem Bitcoin community, and we're all Bitcoiners. So I think the issue we're having now is like we want to have events all over Harlem, but it's very expensive to rent places, and it's sort of, we haven't done any fundraising yet, but we just sort of got together as a nonprofit. But like, it'd be nice if we could just avoid all that red tape and everything we have to do and get a federation of people that want to help out and just support Bitcoin generally. So I would say it would essentially be a charity. So I'd say any charitable cause that you have enough people that you are pretty certain are very passionate about, I think could work very well.
And especially with the value of Bitcoin going up. I know back in the day that the San Francisco Bitcoin meetup, we used to have, a couple of Bitcoin perhaps in the pot, for the pizza and the beer and the event space, the things that we would have to buy. And if we could have somehow saved some of that in a multi-sig, that would have survived us, and we wouldn't have had to upkeep or anything like that, because all the people I knew from the meetup are gone. All the people who ran it with me, they're all gone. I don't know where they are. But yeah, if we could have passed that down, they could still be eating free beer and free pizza off of our dime, and that's a lot more difficult to set up in real life. I'm sure that our funds went fine and they were spent on refreshments, but I have no idea where they went. Josh Segala, what do you think about Fediment? What's your idea of what a possible Fediment could be?
I think like cooperatives and stuff like that would be sort of something good, but also I'm there with Dr. Orange Pill of charities. Charities are a very strong use case.
Oh, come on, Josh, say it with me. You damn hippies, communists.
Damn commies.
Sharing Bitcoin together goes against the principles of freedom of open markets.
No, not at all. I think it's fine. It's perfect. It fits in a capitalist system. It's the other way around that doesn't fit.
It's all volunteerism. If you choose to donate your money to the Fediment, to your neighbors, or whatever the organization is, that's your choice, right?
Yeah.
Dan, what's a good Fediment? What's an idea you'd have?
I think maybe something like a block of flats to run their own management, like the maintenance and stuff like that. For I've got plenty of friends that are in flats that have ended up having to like all redo their windows, or in the UK, a big thing is the cladding, redoing the cladding. So something like that, where there's a community of people that will have expenses to pay, but also need to save for things for the future, which could even be buying out the leasehold of a block, for example. So that would be a kind of good little savings account, I think.
For some reason, I always try to link these things back to music and musicians. So maybe a low income group could get together, raise funds, and buy instruments for students. At a larger level, something like a marching band could get together and fundraise the uniforms, fundraise the buses, the trucks, all the things they're going to need. And through this sharing, if they could especially adopt a large donor to come in, as well as the individuals each donating like $100 or something, I think they could have a great system to manage it. But it's going to take a lot of multi-sigs and a lot of votes, as we've said. And people have to want to participate. I think you see that now with a lot of DAOs. People are like, yeah, I'm in a DAO. Well, how often do you vote? What do you read about the DAO? How involved are you really? And with these Fediments, hopefully putting their money on the line would get people involved, like a local PTA, how you'd want to be involved in your local Fediment.
I wonder, do they support, like what's the word, delegation? Because loads of these DAOs you can just delegate it, so you're like, I just delegate my vote to someone else and they can decide. Like, I haven't read whether they support delegation or not, which kind of could be a good thing, but also
delegation, if they had liquid democracy. I've always said how I'd want to have my vote given to this senator, and then if that person votes against something I don't like, well, I can't undo that, but I can take my vote away from them the next day, and they won't be voting with my vote for things I don't like anymore. That idea is always attracted to me, and that's a lot more easier now with computers. In the past, that would be a huge pain in the butt to track everybody's little sliver of vote, but I think it's doable now. We need to reassess based on the new technology. Moving on, check out worldcryptonetwork.com, where we're constantly working on new features to bring you old episodes. I've been working with DJ Booth, and he's developed a calendar, and this isn't ready yet, but I can confirm to you that we have done a show here on the World Crypto Network and Mad Bitcoins every single day of the year, including Leap Day. So that's pretty incredible. And it's bad to the point where I thought I might have to go back and fill in some days. It's more like we've done too many shows each day. So look, 7, 6, 5, 8, 10, 9, 12 shows on March 18th. So check out worldcryptonetwork.com, where you can watch all these shows for free. Issue 3, Coinbase launches international exchange with Bitcoin and Ethereum perpetual futures. Brian Armstrong puts his money where his mouth is and moves to the Bahamas. Bermuda. That's slightly different. And starts his own international exchange, putting on the pirate hat, perhaps now able to compete with CZ and Binance. Josh Shigala, what do you think? Is Brian Armstrong just continuously following old models, or is he going to be the next Big Vern of Crypsy? Is Brian getting ready to exit scam?
No, I think it's a logical move. The US has been absolutely ridiculous in terms of its SEC. Well, I can't even say ruling, because there are no rulings. It's just sort of sue people randomly, throw anything at the wall, see what sticks, change your mind, say one thing at a university, do another thing over here. Like Brian said in the beginning, I want to do it in the US because this is where the money is, while everyone was going overseas. And, and he's done everything by the book. He's handed over all the records of everybody to the IRS. He's done everything that they've asked for, the government, yet it's not enough. So I think he's just had enough, and he's just going to start working where, well, there's a heck of a lot of money in the rest of the world. And Well, you know, these perpetual swaps are very lucrative if you've got deep enough liquidity. So yeah, I just don't see why he didn't do this sooner, actually.
Dan Eve, Coinbase, they've gone offshore.
Yeah, I think they had to do it, right. They're going to miss. Well, first of all, they want to be able to do futures. Perpetual futures seem like a good opportunity as well. They don't expire, right? And they're dancing with the SEC at the moment, aren't they? They're in this kind of duel. They've just reached this standoff point where I think they've got like the judge ruled. Didn't the judge rule that the SEC's got 2 weeks to decide whether Ethereum is a security? Like it's quite an important time, right? Because that would be a very I think it's going to be a very big reaction in the market if Ethereum, well, either way, right? If the SEC says it's a security, then we're going to see a big dump. But if obviously if they say it's not a security, there's going to be a bit of a pumpy pump going on. But ultimately, you know, as Josh said, they've kind of abided by the book, right? Why stay in a country where you're doing everything, you're trying to do everything by the book, you're kneeling down to the regulators, you're trying to work with them to help mold the regulation, and yet they're slapping you with a stick, like randomly on the, you know, they're sat away like doing their thing, and suddenly the SEC comes up and whips them again. Now didn't they even chop in the two traders, the brothers that were insider trading? So they've even put their own staff in the firing line, which would have put them under scrutiny, I'm sure, in terms of insider trading, the investigation into that. So they really, really are trying to stay on the right side of regulation, and arguably far more than traditional banks are, who are still getting their knuckles rapped for doing crazy ass underhand market manipulation tactics. So yeah, I think it's crazy. What I read today as well, what the SEC have handed out the biggest reward for a whistleblower, and it was 267 million, I think it was, dollars for a whistleblower. But I couldn't find in the article who they blew the whistle on. So in order to be fined that much, surely there's got to be a big bank behind it. Why don't you know who that bank is? And how come someone isn't going down and publicly like going to jail like Charlie Shrem was put forward? It just seems like crypto is the industry that's very, and Bitcoin specifically, Bitcoin trading is so early on, right? That they're just trying to pick these case studies, these examples to set. It's kind of like we need to throw the book at them and make an example of them, and it's not doing good for growing an industry that's a leading innovation, right? It just blows my mind how receptive a company can be to regulators, and then to basically just be slammed, the door slammed in their face many times. So I think it's risky what they're doing, challenging the SEC, but I think it's a bold move, and someone needs to do it, and they're in the right place, because it's not like the SEC can turn around and say, you've tried to avoid regulation at every cost. They've literally done the absolute opposite. So I think that it's risky, but they're in a good standing. And yeah, you're going to drive business abroad. Ultimately, that's just what's going to happen. So, and we're seeing that with the mining, right? There's there's the mining in the US is just under scrutiny again, and for all sorts of random reasons. So I think that yeah, I don't know. It's bad. It's bad. You think you need to let an industry grow before you start, choke holding it, right?
I agree, and I agree with what Josh said. They did bend over backwards, give in to every regulation. Remember Coinbase Earn, or the loan program? They had a whole thing ready for that, advertising, web page, marketing, all the kinds of things you do, and they had to cancel that. They had to roll it back. They politely did it. Like Josh said, they could have just jumped ship then. Dr. Orange Pill, what do you think about Coinbase, now based in the Bahamas or Bermuda?
So I completely agree with everything all three of you guys have said. So rather than repeat what you said, I'll come in with the Dalio take. We're just seeing something that's happened many times before, but we just haven't seen it in our lifetime. It happened with electricity. It happened with cars. We're a capitalist society. And in America, people want to make money, and so that's why mining moved here. And they can fight it all they want, but it's ultimately, I don't know the future, but my strong guess is there's going to be more money in making mining than getting rid of it. There's going to be more money in allowing crypto and Bitcoin related businesses to be in America in the long run. And right now that we're in the they fight you stage, and that's okay. It's just, so you could get mad about it, but can't do anything about it. You just got to sit back and watch. And Coinbase is suing back, and we'll see what happens next. And maybe they'll have to make a decision in 2 weeks about Ethereum. But so it's capitalism versus corporate socialism, or the bribery machine, or whatever you want to call it. But it's a normal cycle. We're just going through it. It's just this time it's with crypto or Bitcoin.
It is interesting. I think a lot of people thought that Brian Armstrong and his approach towards regulation would be successful, that Coinbase would be a big winner here, and it's not turning out that way. They had all the best intentions. They were always above board, and now they're hanging out in the Bahamas. Let's move on. We're running out of time to issue 4. El Salvador's Bitcoin cities canceled. But did it ever really exist? And yes, the price of Bitcoin has fallen, so much so that they're no longer acknowledging Bitcoin City, powered by a volcano, a tax haven where you would pay no taxes in the beautiful country of El Salvador, is no longer being discussed, despite they had architectural drawings, concept art, and details about what would be included in the city plazas, the airport, the city landmarks. And now they say there's neither the Bitcoin City project nor is there knowledge of it. Josh Shigala, what happened to the dream, the volcano-powered dream of Bitcoin?
Vaporware, it's a thing. Hey, look, you never know. Price, the next bull market, someone else will come up with a new crazy plan. These sort of Bitcoin cities have been going on for ages, like we have ANCAP dreamers like Roger Ver and even myself, helping cities start up from nowhere and build them. I think startup cities are a really cool idea. But yeah, I think the problem with El Salvador is that no one really wants to move there because it's just such a high crime rate area. Of course, you hear that about Mexico, and then you get friends that go there and they're like, this is awesome. And here, it's fine unless you're like peddling drugs, then you're not fine. But yeah, so I don't know, like it's a shame for me. It's a little bit of a shame that it didn't work out, but it's also, I think, one of these sort of plans where I kind of feel it's like no bid contracts, government corruption, all that stuff comes into play. I'm like, just Bitcoin can stay out of that stuff. Bitcoin is there. It's a stateless money. It doesn't need the state, any government. If a government wants to buy it, like Bukele did, and have a reserve, hey, go for it. It's I wish you all the best. But yeah, in terms of like all of us hoping for the moon because of something like that, I think we don't need it.
It was a real case of volcano-ware. There we go. But yeah, Josh, we've been through this before. I don't know if people are old enough to remember Galt's Gulch. It was a libertarian project. People were putting their Bitcoin in, multiple Bitcoin, tens of Bitcoin, maybe even hundreds of Bitcoin. I don't know what happened. It all blew up. Somebody ran off with the money. Bitcointopia, a friend of mine tried to set up. It worked out very badly. I don't think he bought the land for the people. It ended up in a court case and so forth. And again, like Josh said, you always want to pick somewhere nice, not like the New Hampshire's Free State Project or Wyoming or whatever, but you can never afford anywhere nice with one of these projects. So it's always in the middle of the desert and we're building it all ourselves. Let's see. Dan, Eve, what do you think about the end of Bitcoin Volcano City?
I think definitely mining using a volcano is like really, really cool. But creating an entire city, it sounds cool, right? But I just would be wary of moving there because I think it would make you a target, right? If it's, imagine a place where anyone could be carrying any crazy amount of money, right? But they're all there because of Bitcoin, and I don't know, it freaks me out sometimes. Even going to conferences, like thinking, outside the conference, as soon as it's over, I like take off any Bitcoin like hats and stuff like that, and get all wary about wearing any kind of like crypto hodl, Bitcoin merchandise outside, just in case someone sees you and thinks you're a target. So it would be like a bit of a dare I say, gold mine, for lack of a better word, of potential like victims. But at the same time, depending on how far it actually, I mean, if these government documents say it didn't get very far, then at least it sounds like it didn't go into a bunch of corruption. It didn't go towards corrupt needs, right? Didn't 4 billion goes in and the money disappeared and they had to give it up, right? This makes it sound like they hadn't even started really kind of piling money in, which is a good thing. It's always sad though that this country, El Salvador, is obviously the benchmark of trying to adopt Bitcoin as a currency. And we're still seeing like, I just, the people from the sidelines who are just hoping for El Salvador to fail. I just think, haven't you got anything better to do in your life? Like, usually people like the underdogs, right? Like in every movie, you want the underdog to win. And in this situation, El Salvador's an underdog. It's relying on the US currency, which has been printed through the roof and devalued, and all the big, it just seems like everyone's, instead of cheering El Salvador on outside of the Bitcoin community, I suppose, it's just that, everyone's kind of like, well, the IMF's like basically, I hope you get screwed. You should really not go back on your Bitcoin decision, and it's going to ruin your loan chances and blah 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 blah. Rather than being kind of supportive and saying, hey, let's see where this actually goes. Yeah, all the best to actually building something like that, but I'm not sure if I could live there myself, because I just feel like I'd have a target on my back, even though I'm poor.
Well, not only that, my brother actually had a place. My older brother had a place in the Canaries with his girlfriend, Canary Islands, and it literally got run over by a lava when that volcano. It just destroyed the entire finca, and so like. Not only are you going to go there for the crime rate, you're going to go there and live on a volcano that might erupt. And I don't know. So it's a tough.
Well, and I hear the same thing about Puerto Rico. Everyone's going there for the Bitcoin tax rate, but then the native people don't really want you there. And that can end badly. Like they do not want you there. And as far as the Bitcoin Citadel idea, everyone's always bringing it up. But then if you actually think it through and you're like, do I really want to live with a bunch of Bitcoiners? Not just, as Dan said, for the target aspect, but just as well, like a bunch of disagreeable, libertarian type Bitcoiner cypherpunks who don't like to talk to anyone or antisocial. Let's all live together. It's a good plan. Let's go to Jesse, Dr. Orange Pill. What do you think about El Salvador's Bitcoin City going away?
So yeah, riffing off what Dan said, they would, after a couple of weeks, they'd have to rename it Mount Docs. That laugh track. Thank you. When I saw just a couple of weeks ago, I saw them. I think Bukele was recommitting to the idea, and I was looking at the architectural drawings and kind of like thinking, wow, this looks incredible. I agree with everything you guys said completely. So again, rather than, I'll just say this, I will make a prediction, not the official one for the end of the show, but I'm going to make this small prediction. There will be a Bitcoin city in the next 5 years in the metaverse.
Nice. Metaverse.
And everybody will have an avatar, so you don't get doxxed.
Well, and cheaper real estate. We don't have to buy anything like that's, and you can print your own land. That's the kind of place we need.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on.
No overrun volcanoes.
Well, just like Josh was saying, the hurricanes, the volcanoes, the natives don't like you. All these sound like great places. We should all move there. But let's move on to the next issue. Issue 5. Balaji closes Bitcoin bet with $1.5 million in donation, including $500K for Bitcoin core development. As we all remember on this show, Balaji, famously, who wanted to put Bitcoin miners in toasters, then went on to work for Coinbase. He bet everyone, the internet in general, that $1 million, that the price of Bitcoin would hit $1 million in 90 days. 90 days later, we are nowhere close to $1 million, despite the collapse of First Republic Bank, Signature Bank, Silicon Valley Bank, and perhaps more banks to come. Let's see. Let's go to Dr. Orange Pill. What do you think? Balaji, is this a good bet? He said he did it for the marketing, for the advertising. 1.5.
Yeah, so I wish I had 1.5 million to just make a bet. But the funny thing is, after he loses the bet and he says that he did it to just prove the idea that there's going to be hyperinflation at some point, and you don't know when it's going to happen, so you might as well. But like logically, that would be like if I made $1 million bet that I can beat Mike Tyson in 3 months, and then in 2 months I just pay it off because obviously I can't. But I'm making the point that he's going to die one day, and at that point I will be able to beat him. So it's just a funny story. It's just fun all the way around. But it made some news, and he paid off his bet for charity. So I think it's kind of cool, actually. If you had kind of money to just basically donate, I think essentially he probably went into it thinking he was just donating money, or maybe he really thought that. I don't know, but it's a fun story.
It reminds me of the time where John McAfee said that he was going to eat his own dick if the price didn't rise to $1 million. And I think the same way, McAfee just wanted the publicity, wanted people to talk about Bitcoin, but people are always mad at him for not eating his own dick, whereas Balaji went ahead and did it, paid out the $1 million, paid another 0.5, kind of show-offy, I think. I agree. If you had just millions of dollars lying around to like make random bets that you knew you were going to lose, you could actually do something with that money. You could say, I'm starting the Bitcoin PR agency, or I'm going to pay people in Africa, or build water wells, or whatever it was. It's this whole, but I guess you felt this was the best he could do marketing-wise with his dollar. Josh Shigala, what do you think about Balaji's big marketing for Bitcoin?
Yeah, I totally agree here with Dr. Orange Pill. Like, is this the same bloke that wanted to put miners in light bulbs back in the day? Remember that guy?
That was actually I think it was Bitfury or one of the.
Yeah, that's right.
But no, Balaji was all about. It was called 21. I'm remembering a little bit now because the
21.co.
21, yeah.
Special Raspberry Pi that cost more because they made it, and it would hardly mine Bitcoin, and they were going to put them in everything.
Yeah, that's right. 21. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like Dr. Orange Pill said, it's a weird bet. I kind of feel like he was super drunk or something when he made it, and then woke up and went, oh, maybe I can just make this a charitable thing and whatever. Yeah, but wacky.
You got to be careful with those deals you make while you're drunk. You'll end up buying Twitter. I've seen. Dan Eve, what do you think about Balaji's bet and his callous use of $1.5 million? He must have hundreds, right, to just throw them around like this.
Well, he obviously has got quite a lot behind him, and I think it's definitely, as much as I'd love to see Bitcoin be $1 million like by June, it's kind of a bit unrealistic, isn't it? I think it's a lovely fantasy, but it's not going to happen. So this is more publicity, and also for donating, right? It's a big amount to be donating, especially didn't $500,000 of it go to like a Bitcoin development sort of funding. So I mean that's really good, right? It's always good in the community. So whether it was done as a publicity stunt or not, I mean I don't think it's the sort of thing that's big enough to be a market driver, although it does create a bit of a buzz. And it's 10x the Laser Eyes 100K Bitcoin prediction. But yeah, see, I'd love to see Bitcoin be $1 million before June, but I think it does sound like it's more like a bit of a drunk sort of a drunk challenge in some sort of way. The fact that he sealed it early and then increased it by 50% as well, I think it's really honourable. It's a really good thing to do, and we're always moaning that Bitcoin development doesn't get as much kind of donations and stuff, and isn't as cash rich as the shit coins that pop up in the in the ether, as it were, out of the ether, as it were, all the time. So it's good to see money being pumped back into Bitcoin, into positive causes, and such a huge amount as well. So hopefully it does some good for general Bitcoin and Lightning development.
Well, and maybe he only meant 100K. Maybe he just put extra zeros on there because it was late at night. He's had a few. Let's see. Is there anything else that we could have done with the money? Moving on to the exit question. Dr. Orange Pill, anything else you could have done with $1 million or $1.5 million?
Oh boy, anything else? Yeah, well, you know, I mean, you could have. I don't have a good answer. I would say you could have just bought Bitcoin. You could have just bought some Bitcoin and then destroyed the key, and then you would have donated to everybody.
See, and that's much more libertarian too, because that enriches the whole party.
Yeah.
My easy idea on this is just like the Joker in the original Batman movie. You just dump it on the crowd. $1 million. I'm going to give it out on the street on Tuesday. You know, $100 bills. Come get them. I'm Bitcoin rich. I just don't care. And then that's very drippy too, because then people talk about that for years. They're like, man, Balaji dumped all the money on the streets. Way better than the Joker. Joker never dropped any money like that. Josh Shigala, what do you think? What else could we do with $1.5 million? Maybe we could make a really big stack of ones.
Well, back in the day, who are those guys that did Moo Moo Land? They're a band and they burnt £1 million.
You're on your own there, man.
Oh, come on. You know it. You know it. Anyway.
I think I just saw that story for some reason. It popped up on my feed about, a band who burned $1 million. I did see that. Was that recently or was that a long time ago?
No, a long time ago.
The K Foundation in 1994 apparently.
Yeah.
Burned £1 million.
Yeah. Yeah. So the KLF, there we go. That was the one. KLF, Moo Moo Land. Yeah, just I don't know. But send it to a burn address. And yeah, like Dr. Orange Pill.
You
just burn it in a big pile.
No, I think I honestly feel that he did the best thing by using it for Bitcoin development. I think is really, that's the way to go. There's not enough people sending towards developers in this place.
Well, it reminds me of the creation of Counterparty, where they had all those Bitcoin, and instead of using them to develop Counterparty, they burned them. And everyone's like, oh, what do we do now? Well, now we got to raise funds. We just burned all the money. So Dan, Eve, what else would you like to do with the money other than betting it in a big public bet?
Well, I think Dr. Orange Pill's on the right track, buying the Bitcoin, but then he could have released, I don't know, 0.1 Bitcoin a month, or whatever a month of the Bitcoin for development funds. So it could be a slow fund. And obviously over the years, as that slowly depletes, the Bitcoin price rises and there's more and more money to put into this Bitcoin, to put into Bitcoin development. So he could have done a slow release.
And he could have done a college fund or something like that, but really dumping the money in the street all at once is more fun. Tuesday at 12 o'clock, 5th Avenue, the money. But let's move on to the last issue of the day. The Kingdom of Bhutan has quietly been mining Bitcoin for years. They say the kingdom got involved when the price of Bitcoin rose above $5,000 and when the Chinese started banning miners, leading to Bitcoin miners looking everywhere for cheap hydroelectric power. The Kingdom of Bhutan has this, as well as quiet Buddhism. Josh Shigala, what do you think about the Kingdom of Bhutan quietly, secretly, perhaps stockpiling a great deal of Bitcoin through hydroelectric mining?
Brilliant. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. See, this is the smart Bukele move. Just start mining. Just start sticking miners on the volcano, you don't need to make a big song and dance and build a city around it. Just get it set up. But that's great. Yeah, I love it. I love seeing these stories as well. There was some other story where some country, I don't know, had some Bitcoin and then it turned out it could forgive the entire country's debt or something like that.
Was that Estonia or something? Was it? I'm sure it was an Eastern European country like Estonia.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure how they got it. They probably stole it off some drug dealer, but
they seized a criminal case. And then the question was whether or not they were going to report it to the EU or not. And the last I heard on that is that the funds were unfortunately lost.
See, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about with the governments. It's not going to work because someone in the government just goes, oh, I'll have that. But yeah.
Well, and much like the U.S. government could have built a Smithsonian museum in every single U.S. state instead of selling the Dread Pirate Roberts money, we just don't know what to do with our governments. But no, I'm excited about this story. I've always wanted someone like Bhutan to secretly be mining or secretly be holding Bitcoin from the beginning, not someone like North Korea that's angry and has missiles and tests them, but someone that doesn't bother anyone, could actually do good with this. It sounds like a William Gibson cypherpunk story here. The future, where Bhutan is incredibly rich and everyone has to go there and bow down because they have the Bitcoin. So another example I think would be like the black Bitcoin billionaires here on Twitter and Clubhouse. They're enriching their community, telling them to buy early, hold long, see what happens. And if Bitcoin goes up like we think it will, Bhutan will be some kind of regional power. Like this could reshape the world. Remember, Venice, city-states used to rule over the world. There's no reason it couldn't happen again. Dan, Eve, what do you think about Bhutan quietly mining Bitcoin?
Well, it's good. I mean, but obviously, it sounds like they didn't really disclose it to the people, that what their taxes and their money is going towards. But it seems to have kind of potentially panned out, because I think they said that they started getting into the mining business and actually buying Bitcoin and accumulating Bitcoin as well around the $5,000 marker. So things could potentially be good, unless they try to day trade it and just ended up getting less and less. But the article is really interesting because it's a Forbes article, and sometimes they're a bit iffy when it comes to Bitcoin mining, and there's multiple points in there where they're like, oh, the Bitcoin mining problem on the environment and its crazy use of electricity, and you're like, yeah, they buy electricity just like other people buy electricity for their business, but you don't go like shaking a stick at these people who are using electricity, regardless of if it's being wasted or not, right? There's no weekly article about how office lights are on. Like you walk in a high street and there's thousands of office lights on and actual lights in these shop windows and stuff. That's wasting electricity. No one's harping at these companies' doors. Bitcoin just seems to get the raw deal when it comes to that. And even about when they talk about in the article the questionable environmental impact, and then in the next sentence they go, Bhutan, which has like 90% hydroelectricity. So you're going, oh, the environmental impact, but then you're going, but they're using clean electricity. I don't know. It's just one of these things where they've got to slip in as many digs as possible, even if they're completely irrelevant and they're proving their own point wrong in the next sentence. But ultimately, there's it's a small country, and they're going to get a lot of stick. They're going to be on the radar for encouraging. It could be on the surface, people are saying, oh, this crazy use of electricity. They're going to be getting the stick from all the environmentalists, even though most of it's coming from renewables. And even again in this article, actually, they talk about how the mining in Russia is increasing as well, which is going against renewables because it's the cheapest electricity. So it's these articles are so funny because they're so contradictory from one sentence to another. It's almost like, why not just leave out the bit that's actually, that proves your own point wrong, or just not bother moaning about the environmental impact if you're saying all these stats that are really positive about the focus on renewables in Bitcoin mining. So I'm all for it, right? I think it's good that a country with a lot of renewable energy and a lot of excess energy that's not being used is going towards selling it. I think they said that 70% of it gets sold to India, for example. So why not, instead of selling it to India, mine Bitcoin and make even more money on that? So it's a logical business deal to make with Bitcoin mining. So yeah, I think it's fantastic.
It is true. The waterfalls just keep on going. You just put more turbines on them. At a certain point, you can't fit more turbines, but until they reach that point. Dr. Orangebill, what do you think about the feel-good story of the day, Bhutan mining Bitcoin?
It is a feel-good story. It's wonderful. In the Bitcoin world, there's this Buddhist style saying that you find Bitcoin at the price you deserve. And I guess this Buddhist country found it at 5,000. The two things in the article that I found more interesting, I say additionally interesting in what we've already discussed, they were using the Bitcoin. I guess they had to sell some of it, and they were using it to offset the cost of the citizens for their electricity bill. So generally, everybody was benefiting because they were paying less for electricity. But even a Buddhist can get wrecked, because it did say in the article they had their money in BlockFi and Celsius. So they maybe in 10 years they will be the citadel of that area because they're financially secure, or maybe they got wrecked. So we'll see what happens. But they're still mining, so they can start over again, as a good Buddhist would. Just say that's what happens, and you just keep going.
It's sad, but I think the most Bitcoiny story out of this would be Bhutan saying, if only we had held our own keys, we would be incredibly rich, but we lost it all in FTX and Celsius and all these things, which, yeah, that is why we know about it. It is pretty crazy. But, you're, like we've said before, a government, you're going to trust the private keys to some vault, to some computer guy who's probably smarter than you anyway. I'm pretty sure Josh would agree all those Bitcoins will leave in, somebody's briefcase. But we're running out of time. We're going to move on to exit questions or predictions. Dan, Eve, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
I predict that oh Jesus, I'm always put on the spot. I never think of this beforehand. So what are the articles going to? Okay, because I think we're gonna get an answer maybe before even next week's show. It won't be a nail biter from the SEC about their decision on Ethereum. And I think that personally, I think that as much as lots of Bitcoiners would like it for some reason to swing in the way of regulators and say that Ethereum is a security, I think they're going to say Ethereum isn't a security. I think it would be too crazy to call it a security. I know that, yeah, that's probably going to raise a few eyebrows, but that's my prediction.
It's been around too long. It's too big to fail. Dr. Orange Pill, prediction or a story of the week. Go ahead.
Sure. First of all, before I wanted to show you this, it's so hard to see, but I wore specifically for today. It says Bitcoin, what me worry. So this is my Bitcoin t-shirt, but I wore it out so you can barely see it anymore. So I can't walk down the street and orange pill the community. But my prediction is a little bit personal because I live here in Harlem. So I work for TV and there's a writer's strike. So I'm not going to be work. I don't write, but my TV show got canceled. So, or postponed. So anyway, I'm not working for the next 3 months. I got the summer off. This summer in New York City, I'm going to host a comedy event called the BitProv Comedy Show. We're going to pay all the comedians in Bitcoin for performing on stage. And it's going to happen sometime in the next 3 months. So that's my prediction. Keep an eye out for it on, the Nostr Twitters, TikToks of the world.
Awesome. That sounds
great.
really fun. I wish I was in Harlem. I'd love to come.
If we're smart enough, we'll figure out a way to live stream it or something. And if not, then I'm sure we'll post a little bit of it on YouTube or something.
I'm just close to Harlem in Amsterdam. That's all.
The original Harlem. We're named after the Harlem because it was New Amsterdam. Initially, New York was New Amsterdam, and then before it was New York. Yeah, and there was a lot of Dutch here.
I thought it was,
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Even the word stoop. Like that's a word from the Netherlands. So a lot of words that we use here in the city are just that things come from that. So yeah, there is a connection between us.
Ah.
And the original Central Park used to be 4 times its size, just like in Amsterdam. New York could have been beautiful, but they built over a lot of it. Josh, a prediction or a story of the week. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, story of the week is we finally we've got the NFT. For those that don't know, with the standard, what we're doing is allowing people to collateralize debt in smart contracts. And the cool thing is, what we're really focused on is collateral management. So you don't need to give up your private keys or anything like that, but you can manage your collateral. So if you're getting close to liquidation, you can trade to something else, like tokenized gold or another crypto. But you can also sell your debt and collateral as an NFT. So we're really working, sort of trailblazing the dynamic NFT space. Instead of using it for artwork, we're using it for DeFi. So it's really great seeing it come together. It's all working in the test net. I'm just super stoked with it. And today came the artwork for it. because there is artwork for it. It's just, it shows you what's in the actual debt. So if you're selling your debt, you can chuck it on OpenSea and you sell the collateral and the debt, and you can see what's exactly in there, in the collateralized debt position and how much debt that's got. And you can buy that collateral. So it's super cool and super fun. So I'm just can't wait to show everyone what that looks like.
That sounds great. And people can learn more at thestandard.io.
Yeah, the standard.io, yeah.
All right, very cool. For my prediction or whatever today, I just want to talk about a book I read that was actually good. So I found this book at the bookstore. It's called Quality Land, a novel. All my German friends are laughing at me. They're like, oh, we read that years ago, but now it's been translated into English. It was going to be an HBO show created by Beavis and Butthead, Mike Judge, but they've canceled that. So probably because of the whole HBO Max merger thing where they just canceled everything that was good. But this is a book kind of like Infinite Jest, 1984, and The Hitchhiker's Guide. You're thrown into a future world where the country has changed its name to Quality Land. It's full of quality people. There's a company called The Shop. They know everything that you want before you need it, so they just deliver it straight to you. You could get matched up by a dating service by Quality Partner. They only give you one match. That's it. And it's all kind of about social scoring and algorithms and all these things that we talk about. But often these ideas are best expressed in kind of a funny science fiction model where you flip through and you think about it and you're like, oh, that sounds terrible. We shouldn't do that. And maybe we can learn from these things and also have new ideas. And it's also just kind of light and fun and satirical. So I would check out Quality Land, a novel by Mark Uwe Kling, who apparently they call Muck. But Josh, what do you think? You're going to check it out?
Yeah, I'm going to definitely check that out. I love the other one that the Beavis and Butthead guys did was Idiocracy. It's also a classic sort of future cult film that didn't get enough credit at the time, but I think it sort of shows its head for those that know.
Getting better and better. Dr. Orangepill, what do you think? Do you like the idea? Or?
Love satire. So yeah, I'm in.
It's super fun when you find something new like this or Hitchhiker's Guide or someone who hasn't read Hitchhiker's Guide and they just burn right through it. And they're like, oh, that was just so light and fun. You know, books don't have to be heavy and painful. You know, you can read Scarlet Letter sometimes, but this was a nice thing. Dan, what do you think?
I think it sounds pretty funky. Yeah, I loved Idiocracy. I thought that was brilliant. I just need to get back into reading because the problem is, like, I used to read all the time, and then I moved into Audible when I worked in London. So I'd just be listening to a book on the train, and I'd smash through the listening. But now I'm too phony. You know, I don't have any of my physical books. They're up in a loft somewhere. So I need to get into reading again. So that might just be something to get me back in.
It's tough when you don't have the job or the commuting, or you used to read on your lunch break or something, and you just don't have that routine anymore. You work from home, and lunch breaks whenever. You don't have to read. You can watch TV or whatever. But it is great to get back to the books. And often, if you're tired of all the movies and tired of all the TV shows, you can see what will be the next movies and TV shows by reading these books and by going out there and finding them, because that's where they are getting the ideas. But all right, enough about books. People who don't read are upset now. They're turning off. So thanks to everybody for joining. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe down below. Until next time, bye.
Bye.